Thanks for staying with us. 2019 saw African nations unite to form a continental free trade area, with countries like Rwanda leading the scoreboard on foreign direct investments. Ethiopia's economic liberalization under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is expected to spur competition for telecommunication licenses in 2020. Uganda launched its own airlines in 2019 into an already crowded African sky, while Kenya shipped its first crude oil export. This next report reviews major economic developments in Africa in 2019.
Africa is forging ahead with the African Continental Free Trade Area, a project to create a $3.4 billion economic bloc. Its champions, South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria and Kenya among them, say the deal will spur trade between African nations, giving their companies access to millions of new customers. Rwanda has emerged as one of Africa's fastest-growing economies in recent years, attracting a growing number of investors who want to set up businesses in the country.
Trade agreements and economic policies won't have much impact without actual infrastructure. With the launch of this facility, Rwanda is doing its part to connect with the larger market of more than 1.2 billion consumers in Africa and beyond.
Uganda Airlines took to the skies once more after almost 2 decades out of action, but flies into a crowded aviation market in Africa, aiming to take a slice of the East African aviation business that is dominated by Ethiopian Airlines.
The number of passengers traveling into Entebbe Airport, in and out of Entebbe Airport, is approaching 2 million. 70% of those are Ugandans. All those currently travel on foreign airlines. So we want part of that cake, and that is quite a substantial number of people.
After many frustrating years, Ethiopians desperate for connectivity may finally have to stop waiting. The country's new communications regulator said it planned to award 2 telecom licenses to multinational mobile companies by April 2020. Prime Minister Ahmed launched a push to liberalize the country's economy last year. Although this is an apparent delay to the timeline officials had previously set, the announcement was welcome news for many.
There is a condition where operators are not allowed to use content or equipment that may damage the security or severity of the country. As in any country, they will cooperate to a lawful interception and make the networks accessible to the designated legal body.
Kenya exported its first crude oil amid pointed reminders by local leaders asking the government to stick to its commitment to share revenues from future shipments equitably. President Uhuru Kenyatta in March signed into law a long-awaited petroleum bill that regulates oil exploration and production and outlines how revenues will be shared between the government, local communities and companies. Zimbabwe's currency woes have undermined President Emerson Mnangagwa's efforts to win back foreign investors who were sidelined under his predecessor, Robert Mugabe. Hundreds of people, mostly pensioners, queued for cash outside one bank in central Harare as Zimbabweans finally got access to new low-denomination currency that authorities hope will end chronic cash shortages.
So other stories now. Residents of the town of Lahupanda are living with the pain of watching the remains of their ancestors drift out to sea from cemeteries because of the unwavering coastal erosion going on in Côte d'Ivoire. Climate change, rising sea and silt levels and loss of mangroves has displaced thousands of people over the last 30 years.
Waves crashing into the cemetery of this once famed colonial town in Côte d'Ivoire is drifting the dead away. Locals say they saw the bones of their ancestors float off to sea. Many have since disinterred their loved ones to a more sheltered resting place.
We live in anguish. What will happen tomorrow if no one comes to the help of the village? We will disappear. But today it is our dead body who are leaving. You know, in Africa, our parents, our ancestors are very important to us. And to see them scattered in the sea is heartbreaking. And every day that God brings to us, we are hunted.
When coastal erosion began devouring the main town of Grand Lahou, the population was relocated 18 kilometers inland in 1973, while some migrated westward to Bandama. But with land receding at an average of 1 to 2 meters a year and a loss of 10 meters over a period of just 2 days in 2011, the old city has all but disappeared, and the threat to the population still looms over them. The dilapidated prison building was the most recent to sink into the sea in early 2019. In a report published in 2019, The Cost of Coastal Degradation in West Africa, the World Bank said Côte d'Ivoire was the country in West Africa most affected by floods, coastal degradation, and calculated the economic cost of the country at $2 billion for 2017, equivalent to 4.9% of its GDP. For the whole of West Africa, that figure is more than $3.8 billion a year. Coastal erosion from climate change significantly affects West Africa's coastal assets because of a rising sea level, elevated sea surface temperature, flooding, and coastal erosion. The local population feels abandoned by the government and tried to include Grand Lahou on the list of UNESCO protected sites in an effort to shore up funding to save the peninsula. The task of saving the country's coastline is huge, with erosion threatening the capital itself. In Abidjan, coastal erosion and climate change is threatening major economic infrastructure such as the Ivorian Refining Company, the International Airport, and the autonomous ports of Abidjan and San Pedro, as well as the presidential facilities and hotel facilities.
Finally, on the program, a prison and correctional facility known as Moko is home to Burkina Faso's latest musical find, Roland Tapsoba, aka Rolby. The 27-year-old Tapsoba is serving a 5-year jail term for fraud, where he produced a music album that has struck a chord with many young people in the country.
In this cramped, overcrowded prison cell in Burkina Faso, 27-year-old Roland Tapsoba, a.k.a. Rolby, can often be found writing song lyrics as his cellmates help him out by singing the songs. There are more than 200 inmates here with sentences that range from a few months to life in prison. Tapsoba, who is serving a 5-year prison sentence for fraud, says music does not only give him a sense of purpose, but it's also something that he's looking to pursue full-time once he's released from prison.
It's normal that when you do something bad, you end up in prison. But I think it's better to prepare for your exit. I have achieved my objective already, and I'm always looking forward to what to do so that even after prison, I can go on. And also, why not support other convicts?
Tapsoba says he always had a passion for music and started experimenting with songwriting and singing before he went to prison. But once convicted, it took him a while to find inspiration again. He rediscovered his love for music during weekly music lessons held by the prison as part of its rehabilitation program. It's during these weekly music lessons that prison guard Karim Oldrogo noticed Tapsoba's talent.
I think I detected a hidden talent, so I approached him and we talked and he agreed. So I gave him a guitar. He plays it often and creates his own compositions. You saw it. He immediately played with his fellow prisoners, and I think it's great for him and it's also great for us.
After committing 4 songs to paper and hours of practice with fellow inmates in the prison courtyard, Tapsoba eventually sat down to record his songs. Tapsoba's songs Bayiri Dem and Kombi BC, which urge you to go and work, be proud and live simple, have particularly struck a chord with young people. This country's licensing and copyrights body, the BBDA, has offered to sponsor and distribute Tapsoba's 4-song EP.
And that's the power of music. And that's the program today as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shubowale. Bye for now.